3 hidden psychologies that shape user choice, unmasked. We have all kinds of silly screens and costumes and all the things today. But who's excited? Let us know where you are, what's on your mind, and what your favorite Halloween candy is if you celebrate Halloween. All the things in the chat. Let us know. I want to hear where you are and what you like to eat. I did just learn the most popular Halloween candy here in America is wait for it, big payoff, Reese's peanut butter cups. Americans love Reese's peanut butter cups. It is our jam. We love them. Oh, wow. Oh, Butterfingers. Okay. Oh, Connecticut. We got Canadians. Good for Canadians. I hear something's going on between Canada and America. And it's not really political, but it is. It's a big baseball game. Heard the Blue Jays came back last night. Oh, Seattle. Hey, Sharon, what's up? Dark chocolate kisses. Oh, nice. Sour gummy worms. Go Jays. Oh, look at that. The Canadians are coming out in force. Awesome. France. Any candy. Love it. I want some other people from Vienna to like drop very, very boutique chocolate names. Oh my gosh, San Diego nerds, dark chocolate. Oh, this is too much. I'm going to start eating way too many candies. All right. That said, who's starting today? Which one of our geniuses is leading off today? I don't even know. I don't even know. Oh, is it Channing? Okay, okay.
Me.
Okay, cool. So we're just going to get started. Our first presenter today is the scariest presenter of them all. It's Channing with his goofy mustache. He's coming to us live from Hawaii. And then we're going to have Jeff coming to us live from, oh, wow, we have all this background. It's crazy.
We're ready. We're ready, Ryan.
Okay, cool. Channing's coming to us live from Hawaii. He's our chief strategy officer. Jeff, he's one of our senior behavior scientists, even though he looks like he's 12 years old. And then Abby, she's also a senior behavioral scientist. She's coming to us from South Africa live. She's from Wisconsin, though. She's a cheesehead in South Africa, which is awesome. So I don't know, Channing, what happens next?
I guess we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. As someone who has never grown a mustache in their entire life, this is like the one socially acceptable day to wear a mustache. So I feel amazing. I wish that it stayed when I touched it because I could have a little bit better feeling here. But now I know. Now I know the feeling of a mustache. So thank you for humoring us. So today we're going to talk about trick or treat, which is 3 hidden psychologies that affect user choice. We're going to talk about case studies that we've seen at Irrational Labs that we've helped build and use these kind of psychologies to make change. And then we're also going to point out some ideas from other categories and then maybe ways that these treats can turn into tricks and when you shouldn't be using them. So I'm going to talk about the first one. I'll hand it over to Abby and then Jeff will close us out. And I think we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussions. And if anyone wants to send us Halloween candy, please do. I'll put my address in the chat. Also, kudos whoever said Butterfinger. That is the only correct answer that you could have. So that person wins an extra prize. Okay. So the first trick or treat that we're going to talk about today is the idea that what's yours possesses you. And shout out to Michael, who's made all these beautiful illustrations for us. And we're going to talk about the endowment effect. So this is all about the endowment effect. And so if you don't know what the endowment effect is, the endowment effect basically says that you are going to value things that belong to you much more than things that do not belong to you. And the best example of this is from a very famous Dan Ariely and Carmen study about actually tickets. So at Duke University, their basketball is well known, very passionate, and so passionate, in fact, that people need to have a lottery to get tickets. And so when you enter the lottery, you might get a ticket, you might not. And so they use that lottery as a natural experiment to understand what people's willingness to pay and willingness to receive for tickets are. So it's a great example. Lottery winners got the tickets and they asked them, how much would you be willing to sell your ticket for? And lottery losers were asked, how much would you actually be willing to buy a ticket, right? Even if the face value is $10, how much would you be willing to buy it for? There's a giant gap between this. The people that already won, they wouldn't be willing to accept $1 less than $2,400. And people that didn't have the ticket yet were quite a bit different, maybe $175. I've seen this in real life with the Cricket World Cup. I had a friend's parents that won tickets to the Cricket World Cup, and they paid about, I think, $500 for their tickets. tickets are going for about $70,000 at the time, and they still didn't want to sell them. And it's because they owned it. I doubt they would be willing to spend $70,000 for this. This is an amazingly potent effect. This happens with things like basketball tickets, probably Taylor Swift tickets. This also happens with things like coffee mugs and Lego blocks and drawings of AI that you make versus other people make, origami. It's a very well-known effect, and it's a direct implication of loss aversion. And so endowment effect and loss aversion are very closely related. Okay, so how does this work in practice? So we worked with an organization with Bitcoin to understand how do you get people to add Bitcoin to their wallet? Opening wallets in crypto is very hard. At least it was very hard. Now you can open it in a single click via PayPal or Robinhood. But back then it was a bit complicated. I think that was part of the allure in many ways, was that Bitcoin was complicated. It created a prestige, it created an in-group, but it is hard to do. And so we wanted to test whether endowing people with a small amount of Bitcoin, in this case, we called them Satoshi, which was about a 3600th of a Bitcoin, would increase the likelihood that they open their wallet. And we wanted to test whether a small amount, so one single Satoshi, which is worth like a fraction of a cent, versus 3600 Satoshi, which at the time was worth about $1, was better at driving wallet adoption. So we had a control group where we gave people nothing, and we gave them information on how to open their wallet. We had a kind of a small Satoshi group where we gave people a single Satoshi and said, there's a single Satoshi in your wallet, go open it. And we had a large Satoshi group, and we asked them to open their wallet and receive their large Satoshi. So question time, please put in the chat which one you think worked the best. So type in A if you think there's no significant difference at all. Type B if you thought the small amount worked a little bit better than both. C if the large amount worked a little bit better than both. And D if the large amount worked a lot better than both. So I'm going to give you a second guess. I see that A. Naveen thinks it's D. A. C for Brad. Okay. The answer is a trick. None of those things were the right thing. This wouldn't be Halloween without a little bit of trick. The answer was that the small amount worked a lot better than the control and about the same as the large amount. So you can see that any endowment at all increased wallet creation by about 700 times, even though we were offering over 1,000 times the Satoshi in the large amount group. It didn't really matter. And that's because the effect that you're really satiating people on is giving them a sense that something is theirs, that something belongs to them. It doesn't really matter how big that is. Okay, so the second thing that we did is to show people, is to kind of demonstrate this psychology, is getting people to sign up for diabetes management. So we worked with an organization called Livongo, where people were not signing up for a free diabetes kit. The welcome kit was free, and oftentimes diabetes is covered by people's health insurance. So it's a very inexpensive way to manage a chronic illness and massively increase the quality of life. And so we did an experiment where we simply changed the CTA on one of their emails, and I'll show you the results of that here. So you can see there's a very simple email. The difference on the left was the original, on the right was our redesign. We just changed a few words. Instead of join Livongo, it said claim your welcome kit. That gave people the impression that there was a welcome kit with my name on it that they had to go get. And we said, it's waiting for you. Your welcome kit is waiting for you. You just have to go get it. So again, implying that this kit belongs to you. It's yours to claim. That small language framing created a 25% increase in open rate, an 88% increase in click-through, and over 120% lift in registrations. So again, these are very small changes that lead to huge, huge results. Okay. How else have we seen people do this? I think Warby Parker was one of the very first to do this, where they'd ship people glasses to try on at home, and you try them on, you return the ones that you don't want. Mattress companies since have taken that to extremes, where they'll send you a mattress and you ship it back if you don't like it. I got the Inside BE had a really nice example from Uber where they're giving a discount, but if you read in the print here, they say the promotion's already been added to your account. There's nothing to claim already, actually. There's no code that you need. It's already in there. You just have to do it. And then SaaS companies are famous for their freemium model. Here's an example from Claude, where you get almost the entire experience. I think Claude's actually one of the more restrictive ones. Gemini and ChatGPT give you almost the full experience where you have credits to use to build something, to interact with the platform. You feel like you own it. That way, when those limits hit, then it's really time. You really already feel invested in the platform, and you're more likely to pay. Put in the chat if you know of any other good examples of endowment effect in action. When can it go bad? Oh, sorry, this is the treat. This is the summary. People more highly value things that they own or they think that they own, right? And so I think that the important thing here is that they might just perceive to own it. In the Livongo case, they didn't own those things at all. We just gave them the perception that it was for them and it was made for them. Okay, tricks to avoid. Please don't do these things. If you do these things, you are a single candy household. And if you avoid these things, you are the full bar kind of household. And kudos to you for doing these. So sports betting does a really bad job of this. It's a really dark pattern where they talk about getting money back. You don't actually get money back. It just is an account and you can make another bet. It just further indebts people into gambling. It's a really dark pattern to do. And then the other thing you have to realize is when people use your product, they're very highly endowed to it and they will be very highly resistant to change. And I think you've seen this recently with both ChatGPT and Cursor. They've rolled back or changed pricing features, changed the way that the models work without giving people a heads up that and it gave people the feeling that something I owned no longer belongs to me and it should. And so the backlash was probably more extreme than people intended. So be careful that endowment is both a blessing and very much a curse. And so remember that what's yours will possess you. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Abigail. Abigail, do you want to share or you want me to drive for you?
You can drive. That works great.
Okay,
Thanks, Chan.
great. So
Hey,
Abby
everyone.
is, I'll introduce you, Abby, since Ryan did such a
Thanks.
poor job. Abby is a great senior behavioral scientist. She's worked across the globe on a number of interesting projects. And yes, is based in one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's one of the few that I say is more beautiful than Hawaii in Cape Town. So Abby, over to you.
I will take full ownership of that and own that in my endowment effect. It's hard to leave Cape Town when you feel like you own it and you live here and you live the beauty. And I'm also happy to report that I saw someone in the chat earlier wrote that they're South African and grew up without Halloween, that my neighborhood recently has been getting really into Halloween, which is really exciting for me as an American, getting to get treats and candies and see all the kids dressed up. So really looking forward to that tomorrow. And super excited to be with you all here on All Hallows Eve. So I'm going to chat through the second psychology today, which you can apply to shape user behavior. And that is the psychology that's present when we are all ever curious about what is lurking behind the door. And this psychology we like to call the curiosity gap. So the curiosity gap explains what happens when, as humans, we are really wired to peek. When something is hidden, especially if it's hidden just out of reach, so when it's so close we can almost taste it, our brains are really itching to fill that gap and to learn that more information. So that pull of curiosity, mystery, suspense, of wanting to learn more about the unknown is, why we want to see that horror movie after we watch the trailer, or it's why we want to keep moving through the haunted house and we end up being really delighted about what's behind the next door. It's also why we can't resist an unopened notification when we're seeing just a little bit of what that notification is. It's why we're drawn to certain emails and certain call to actions more than others. And it's why we can be really excited to explore new products and features. Next slide, please. So curiosity happens when there is a gap between what we know and what we want to know and what we don't yet know. And we all possess an inherent human desire to learn. And when we're only given partial information about something, we crave to know the rest of that information. But there really is a sweet spot in the curiosity zone, which has been well studied in the literature. And it's when there is just enough uncertainty to keep people engaged, but not so much uncertainty that people feel stressed or people feel overwhelmed. So on one end of the spectrum, if there's too much uncertainty, as I said, it can feel really overwhelming for users. And for us, we can feel nervous. We can not want to fully commit to opening that door and seeing what's, hiding in the basement. But on the other end of the spectrum, if there's not enough uncertainty, if we already feel like we know all of the information and have the complete picture, it's not as engaging for us. And users aren't as likely to want to engage with the product if they feel like they know everything about it right away. So the curiosity zone is about getting us in that sweet spot where attention turns into engagement without causing anxiety. So there really is a sweet spot there where we want to spark interest in individuals, but not create that stress for them, so that they feel engaged, eager to explore, eager to learn, motivated to engage with our products. You can go to the next slide, please. Great. So let's talk a little bit about how Irrational Labs we've applied curiosity in practice. So I'll share two examples and then show some examples of how we've also seen this used in the world that we think are really a first-class examples. So the first one from work that we've done is from a project we worked on with the Common Sense Lab, where we attempted to get people to call into their credit card company to lower their APR and therefore lower their credit card debt and their payments. And, at face value, this feels like a behavior that customers would clearly want to do and be motivated to do. But it turned out that the simple hassle of actually calling the credit card company, picking up the phone, taking that extra step, doing a dull action was enough to offset that behavior. And people weren't calling to get their credit card rates reduced. So our goal in this project was to design a message that would encourage people to actually pick up that phone. So we ran a 7-condition experiment with Google AdWords to test out 7 different messages to drive customers to phone into their credit card company. So I'm going to give you a little quiz on the next slide, ask you to take a guess of which message you think is most effective at boosting calls. And this is not a trick like Channing's. There is a real right answer here. So we'd love to hear from all of you what you think the right answer is in this case. Was the message that was most effective one that leaned into outrage, told people they're getting ripped off? Was it one that promised a secret money hack? Was it one that told consumers they could earn cash by calling, or one that emphasized a limited time offer? So I'll give you all just a minute in the chat, seeing lots of A's, B's, more B's, C's, D's. Okay, it looks like we have quite a spread here. But seeing as we're talking about curiosity, can go to the next slide, please, Channing. The message here that had the highest impact on engaging customers and getting them to actually make that call was the message that leveraged curiosity, was this message B, one that promised that if you called, you would be able to learn a secret money hack. So they're teasing that little bit of information and creating that curiosity gap between what you know and what you want to know, or what's unknown. Next slide, please. So this message, as you can see here in this graph, outperformed all the other messages we ran in our experiment. And then this graph here as well, you can see the control of the percentage of people that were calling in. And this was the only message that had an impact that boosted behavior beyond what the control was already doing. So promising consumers that they could call in to unlock some sort of insider knowledge helped to turn this dull task of calling your credit card company into one that was curiosity provoking, slightly exciting, slightly anticipatory for people. Great, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so another example from work that we did with the Arizona Federal Credit Union. We're trying to get credit union customers to engage with a new tool that helps them to track their spending, provide them with better insight into their spending habits, and hopefully therefore drive, better spending behavior. So what we did to try to drive people to this tool was we created an email that had a curiosity hook in the subject line, and also created a feature that enabled customers who were using the tool not just to track their spending habits, but to also see how their spending habits compared to that of others. Because it turns out that people are really curious in learning what others are doing as well. Hello, reality TV. I think we've all been there and wanting to know what other people are up to. So you can see here, this is the email, the subject line in the top says, curious how you're spending on eating out compares to others. And then this call to action brings you to that tool to see how you would compare. And offering customers these insights and using curiosity in this way, this email had an open 28% and a click-through rate of 22%, which are massive numbers for an email such as this. So curiosity here in action, offering people insight into the behavior of others, providing that tease of here's information you're going to learn was really effective at driving the impact. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple more treats to share with you. These all exemplify curiosity, and you're probably familiar with seeing all of these applied principles in practice. So the first example here on the bottom left, or the middle of the screen, is an example from Airbnb, where they leverage, again, that curiosity about others, what others say about us, to drive their users to write reviews about how their stay was, by telling the users that they can only see what their host wrote about them if they write a review themselves, excuse me. So prompting users to act and re-engage by leveraging that curiosity, wanting to know what other people have said about you. The top left box is an example from LinkedIn. We've probably all seen this one as well. LinkedIn prompts users to get premium. They prompt upsells by introducing these information gaps that can be filled by premium. So they tell you how many maybe people have viewed your profile, but you have to buy the premium feature in order to actually see who those users are. So they're giving you just a taste of what that information is, which makes you excited and want to buy the premium version to learn more about who those users are. And then the top right here is an example from Medium, but I think we've seen lots of examples like this in news sources and Substack, et cetera, where when you're going to read an article, you see just a little bit of the article, you're able to read just enough so that that information gap, that curiosity gap becomes really relevant for you. And then you need to sign up to do more. But I see someone in the chat saying, ugh, paywall right now, which is a trick, which we'll come to later. So you are exactly right. There's a sweet spot there of how do you apply this in a way that's really a treat and not a trick, which I'll get to just now. But to summarize what the treat is, if you could go to the next slide, please, Channing. So overall, the Halloween treat that I'll leave you with today is that you can leverage curiosity by withholding just enough information where your users feel really encouraged and excited to open that door, to peek into the basement, to see what's behind the curtain, behind the corner. But curiosity really works best when the door leads to something exciting, leads to something delightful, leads to somewhere worth going, where users leave the experience with your product feeling satisfied and feeling like their curiosity was piqued and was and it would lead to a good outcome for them. So this leads to the final slide, which is where the UGG paywall piece comes back into play, which are tricks to avoid. So if you want to be the full candy bar house and not the little tiny piece of candy house, as Channing put it before, remember that curiosity is a doorway that should lead somewhere exciting, and it's not a hamster wheel. So the goal of using curiosity is to use it to design experiences that spark that exploration, spark that desire to learn, but then also provide resolution for people so that they really feel tangibly rewarded for engaging with your product, not trapped inside, not trapped on this hamster wheel. So a couple ways that this could backfire here are listed on the screen, some things to keep in mind when applying this practice in reality. And one way that curiosity can sort of backfire, leveraging it can backfire, is with like exaggerated clickbait headlines that don't deliver the impact that they're promising. So think, for example, BuzzFeed style titles like "You'll never believe what happened," or a news notification that you get on your phone that when you look at it, it's old news or recycled news. Things that feel clickbaity, but then they sort of break that promise and don't deliver on what they should for you for impact.
Oh my gosh.
Can you go back?
You wanted to introduce Jeff. You did.
I wanted to introduce Jeff.
You do.
All right,
I
should I
get it.
skip ahead and introduce Jeff?
Well,
No.
Oh, look, everybody's jumping
There
in.
we go. Okay, there we go.
No.
Well, there's a couple more examples here, but basically this is the summary of how to avoid tricks. Is like, you want to give your users something that feels valuable for them and isn't really a bag of crap. So that can seem enticing in the short run. You can get a paper bag from the Halloween door next door, but when you open it, there's nothing great in it. It's sort of off-putting and stops people from wanting to come back to your house the next year to get that candy again. So with that, I'll introduce Jeff. You can skip ahead to the next slide. Thanks, everyone.
Wait 1 second. Before you introduce Jeff, Rosie, can you put the magic link in the chat, please? Oh, there it is. It was magical. So
it's in.
Oh, nicely done. Nicely done. Just briefly, we are taking questions on our Google Doc. So we'd like to do this with larger crowds so that we don't have the proverbial mosh pit of questions at the end. It looks like we're on pace to have about 15 minutes for Q&A. So please put your questions in that Google Doc. It's open to anybody. And then we'll take them as they come. So as your brain is filling up with questions, get them over there. We'll use that instead of kind of Zoom hand raising. And but we'll bring you on mic, assuming you can ask your question concisely. All right, with that, Abby, tell them about Jeff Babyface Ott.
All right, I'm excited to introduce Jeff Ott. I will not use that name as his middle name. I'm sure he has a middle name that's different than that.
Nope, that's his
He's also a
born
senior.
name. That's his name.
That's his name. All right. Excited to introduce him, senior behavioral scientist at Irrational Lab as well. At Irrational Labs, he does product and service design work for lots of Fortune 500 clients for us. He and I have worked together in lots of capacity, leading workshops, training people on behavioral science. So really excited to hand it over to him to orient you to the third psychology.
Wonderful. Thank you, Abby. No, thank you, Ryan. As to lean into the curiosity, I feel like this is part of why using a mask. And so I'll reveal the baby face. Hopefully there's not a bag of crap underneath here. But let's roll into the next one. The next psychology that can get in the way of product today is the curse of comfort, or otherwise known as the status quo bias. So in plain English, we tend to treat the right now, the here, what I am doing, the default, as the winner because it's effortless, it's familiar, and it's easy to justify. This isn't necessarily a rational evaluation of all options out there. It's really more of a heuristic that when in doubt, don't switch. It has some evolutionary benefits of, hey, if I'm still alive by doing something, maybe I just stay with that and I'll continue to survive, but it can backfire, especially in products. So our plan walking through this together is to spot how we accidentally strengthen the status quo at moments, and then show simple design moves that can create reevaluation and make action feel natural. So again, we tend to do nothing even when another option is clearly better. So let me tell you about what we're seeing here in this slide. So this boy is standing in a doorway inside a haunted house that he already knows. He knows the creaky stairs, the weird noises, the whole thing. Outside, it's brighter, it's safer. His friends are literally waving the king size, the fun size candy bars, and still he hesitates. And the question that we might have is why? And thinking about the status quo, even the spookiest one feels safer than the unknown. So inside, he knows the floorboards, he knows where they squeak, he can predict the jump scare in the hallway, but outside it means crossing a threshold, and our brains are built to avoid these uncertain switches. So something is happening here. Another behavioral science principle is on full display, fueling this child to stand still. This is uncertainty or ambiguity avoidance, where if the outside isn't actually better, when the outcome isn't crystal clear, we would freeze and stick with the familiar. So translating this into product land, users often stay in this haunted house, the plan they started with, the workflow they've already used, the empty dashboard, because it's at least predictable. Our job here is to make the outside feel safe and welcoming. That means lighting the path, clear next steps, shrinking that step, one click or a guided choice, and normalizing the move. So most people step out here. If we don't design and brighten that path, the default will win, not because people don't want better, but because the doorway is where the inertia kind of stops. So thinking about you can go to the next slide here, Henning. The tricks to avoid, because this is not necessarily something that we want to amplify, but this is something that we have to, in contrast to Channing and Abby's psychologies, this is one that kind of gets in the way. So we often assume that users will take the next action, but good intentions we know actually often stall. So believing that they would take that is as kind of detrimental as believing in a friendly ghost, right? It's comforting at the outset, but it's generally unrealistic. So we want to think about creating active choice moments, clear benefits, deadlines, all of these other design principles such that we can overcome status quo bias. And this trick will show up in many different places, right? So we can think about optional opt-ins, passive defaults, deferred setups, fine print benefits, one-time nudges, and then the static journey. So this shows up in a lot of places. Knowing it and identifying it is the first step. So we partnered with Brazil's National Treasury and B3 to diagnose a reinvestment drop-off. The data point that stunned everyone was that around 80% of investors miss out on continued earnings by not reinvesting at maturity. We examined the incumbent maturity email that you see on the screen, and there are 3 clear misses, right? There's no deadline, so action feels optional, and we know that procrastination will set in there. There's no visible benefit, so no keep earning payoff in the headline, and then there's no real decision. It's an informal tone, no explicit choice is being asked. So behaviorally, it was a perfect storm. There was low salience, no trigger, and no frame of the cost of an action. Inertia wasn't the bug, it was the default. So to fight inertia, we tested 3 email designs. So we have the one on the left, intention only. So that's a heads up, bonds are expiring. It's just pure salience. Then we have in the middle an active choice. Which bond do you want? We offered 3 relevant options. And then we had a forced choice. Do you want to keep earning or stop? And I'm curious, which one do folks think? You can put in the chat. We'll do 1, 2, or 3. Attention is 1, active choice is 2, and forced choice is 3. Which one do you think won? Great, so I'm seeing 2s and 3s, 2s and 3s. Okay, and if we go to the next slide, forced choice won, both because it created a decision where one did not exist, and it made the opportunity cost explicit. If you do nothing, you lose future earnings. This small language shift actually flips the emotional math from meh to actually moving. And the forced choice had over 2x more scheduled reinvestments. And then also I saw a lot of folks throwing number 2, the active choice. It also delivered a statistically significant lift over the control. So this wasn't just attention. It was the choice, the kind of creating an active choice or forcing a choice there that did the work. So a different product, but the same kind of ghoul that is haunting us here. We partnered with Kiva, a fintech that offers microfinancing, and their loan application was very long, with many applicants stalling along the way. Our hypothesis was that perfectionism and procrastination were beating these good intentions. So we tested an email that added a simple deadline to finish the application. No form changes, just adding kind of a clock in the back. Any guesses as to what happened when we added that that simple deadline? Stop earning. Yeah, as you might anticipate, there was a 24% increase over the next one. And then, okay, so, and then we did another thing. So that 24 lift, it translated to a lot more small businesses receiving a 0 interest loan. And actually go, stay on this one. And then so go back one. Yeah, so in this one here, we then layered a second lever. So we added a reward. So we introduced an earlier deadline with a small incentive. So submit a week prior and you can move to the front of the line. That combo, a deadline plus reward, drove an additional 26% increase over the single deadline version. And this is stacking loss aversion, don't miss the window, with instant gratification. Get a tangible benefit now. And this design takeaway that I would kind of highlight is when you combine a finite time with a near-term benefit, motivation can spike without adding friction. So the first key to solving the curse of comfort is really recognizing that you or any product users are experiencing it. So if I am actually staying too sedentary, I need to recognize, hey, I should get up and I should move. And then to lift this curse, it's really thinking about, okay, when we have been lured into this, the haunted halls of good enough, how can we break this spell and create moments of reevaluation that might light this way forward and really upstart churn hesitation into movement? So I'll pause there. That is kind of the last of the curse of comfort. But just to kind of go through them again, we had Channing talk about the endowment effect, kind of what possesses you, or what's yours will possess you. Abigail talked about the curiosity gap, what lurks behind the door, and then we just talked through status quo bias, the curse of comfort. So I will pause there. I'll pass it back to Ryan, I think, and he can kind of walk us through the next pieces. Oh, Ryan's muted.
Right. You
The
were.
curse of the mute, Ryan.
Yeah,
Oh
curse of the
no, the ghost
sticky
took your
mute.
voice, Ryan.
I know you were all purposely like, let's mute him. Let's mute him. Well, first of all, let's give some love to our 3 presenters in the chat. If you enjoyed anything, maybe be specific and concrete. That's what we do here in behavioral science. Say, I liked X, like I hadn't thought about Y. Or Jeff really does look like he has a baby face, and is he 12? Something super specific in the chat by way of giving love. That said, it's time for the cues that we might have A's for. I see people are dropping their questions in this Google Doc like crazy. The first question, whoever put that in there, you didn't put your name. So please go back and put your name in there. Now I'm going to professor mode. There's no name on your paper. Oh, there you are, Rocky Balboa. Rocky, can you come off mic and ask your first question, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Where are you, Rocky? Where are you coming to us from? A fern garden?
Austin.
Okay, or Austin. Cool. What's your question? And is it for someone specific or is it to the whole team?
It is for the whole team. I've actually been following Irrational Labs for quite a while, and you guys, the insights that you guys actually share through customers is very helpful. And we have been trying to apply the same strategies in business to government industry, wherein we are selling to the government. And what we have found is it is slightly challenging because the strategies for engagement actually are limited when it comes to government. So I just wanted to ask, with Irrational Labs, do you guys follow a different playbook when it comes to engaging with government? Because we have been having a few challenges copy pasting the same strategies that work very well in private sector. They are not working very well in public sector.
That's
Team,
great.
see my note in the chat real quick. Keep it professional.
No, I would say, Rocky, I'll give a quick reaction to that. Is like, the one thing that you need to, like, when we think about things, is that copying and pasting strategies that work rarely work in general. I think the thing that you'll hear a lot of us talk about is the context of the situation really, really matters. There are literally hundreds of psychologies and ways and approaches that you could use. The one that is going to work for your particular situation really depends on a careful diagnosis of the stakeholders, the power dynamics, the politics of that situation. And so I do think that most of these psychologies do work. The way that you might instantiate them are going to be different for each situation. So this goes back to Abigail's thing about what worked for us in that case study that we shared. Sounds really clickbaity, and I guarantee you if we tried it again right now, it wouldn't work. And I think in the same way, something that might sound very enticing to a private sector client might sound off-putting to a government client. So I think it's about really thinking about, do you have the right psychology, and then is it instantiated in the right way?
Makes sense. And I think it might have been a poor choice of words when we actually said copy paste. What I meant to say is we actually use some of these strategies as hypothesis, and we actually test these things out several times, whether it is through newsletter, whether it is through an email, whether it is through an email subject, whether it is through the website. Sorry about that. It's a poor choice of words, but I just wanted to ask, are we doing
No, that's great.
that we're trying to test it out?
No, I think the approach that you would take, Rocky, there, and of course, I wouldn't assume that you're copying and pasting. The idea that you're testing and trying new things is the right one. And I think that's the way that you're going to hit upon the thing that works.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Maybe to add one thing to this conversation that I think about a lot. in our work at Irrational Labs is the difference between focusing the changes you're making on like one single screen or one single interface versus like a broader context. And people who are engaging with a platform aren't just making decisions based on what's on the screen. Small tweaks can certainly change their behavior and direct them in other ways. But I think when we think about what the context is, also thinking about where people are coming from and how their day-to-day life is playing out beyond that can be really useful kind of strategy to employ as well. And I can imagine it's particularly salient in a government context or working in the public sector as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Otter, do you have a thing to weigh in with?
Nothing more brilliant than what Abby had just said. I was echoing, like, if you can put yourself in the user's shoes, like someone may be coming with more urgency perhaps, or more wanting to like make the right choice, or there's a different psychological kind of mindset that one might come in when they're making a decision for getting a personal loan versus a business loan, for example. So like I think that's an important piece of it, is like put yourself in the psychology of someone coming in.
Yeah,
No, absolutely.
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Rocky. That was an excellent question. We're gonna go to Naveen, but before Naveen, you come on mic. Jeff, quick question. Are you supposed to be a cowboy or a bank robber or a zombie killer? Like, what
Great
is
question. I was actually thinking the same thing about you, Ryan. What are
Wow, well played. Well played. Okay, because I have no witty answer. Naveen, can you come on the mic?
Of course, I can save you, Ryan. But thank you guys all for the presentation. That was super insightful. I'm a student at UC Irvine, but I'm coming from Berkeley. That's why I put it on the question there. And I just recently got really fascinated about behavioral economics and was wondering how, when you guys are approached with a new challenge, a new client, do you guys have a playbook or an approach that works best depending on the problem? Or like, how do you guys go through testing the strategies to find the most effective behavioral science principle? Could be a convoluted question, but
It's such a good one, Naveen, though. And I actually think that Ed said something to this point in the chat, where you throwing curiosity at a question where like actually people want transparency, like that's not going to work. And so I think the first thing is really identifying, all right, what is the problem that you're trying to solve and what is getting in the way? And if you can identify, okay, there's some psychologies that are getting in the way here, but then what behavioral levers, what behavioral tools, what concepts and principles can be deployed. I think it really is mapping the problem to the solution one-to-one, because you're absolutely right. Like I would not throw curiosity at every problem. Otherwise we'd be curiosity labs, in which case like that wouldn't work. It's a great question though.
The other thing I'd add, Naveen, besides the fact that now, besides wanting a mustache, I want your hair, is that one thing that we spend a lot of time on is identifying the key behavior, getting really, really, really specific with the key behavior. Sometimes people will say things like, I want to prevent churn, or I want to increase engagement. And I think that is a great like macro behavior, but what is the very micro behavior that people want to see? On what platform, how many times, what specifically do we want people to do? And so obviously that's constrained in a digital environment. It's creates even more specificity in a physical environment. What is the user? We want to get really, really clear there, because as we said, the context of that matters a ton. And so using the 3B framework is one way to do it, but really nailing the behavior is something that I think a lot of people feel is something that I understand. And so let's just move on past that. But I would tell people to spend probably 3 or 4 times as long as you think you need to get that right, because then the rest of it will solve itself.
awesome. Thank you guys for the responses. I also noticed you had an internship program, which I talked to Isabel about, so I'm excited for that. But thank you both again for the responses.
Yeah, no, well, if you want to intern, that's a cash bribe thing. So talk to me later. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But next question. Dark Chocolate Kisses, Sharon McCarthy in Seattle. Come on down. How are you, Sharon? Oh, no, don't be gone, Sharon. Did Sharon fall off? No, you're there.
No, Sharon's driving, actually.
Oh,
So
no excuses. No excuses.
exactly. So it's status quo bias probably exists in most situations. So I guess my question is twofold. So how do you know that it is something that really has to be, addressed, removed as a barrier? And at the same time, curiosity effect is important, but we want certainty. So how do you decide when status quo is that important and when it's better to activate curiosity at the risk of certainty?
I think this is a great question, Sharon. And one place that I might start is, I think whenever we, to Channing's point of identifying a problem, kind of scoping out the landscape of the problem that we're trying to answer, we would, to the extent that it's possible, find data and look at drop-off points of throughout a user journey. And if we are seeing that can help inform, hey, is this something that people need more information about? Or is this something that actually it might be that they have enough information to move forward with? That would be where I would kind of use that to inform, hey, do we need to leverage curiosity or do we need to leverage transparency? I would say that most of the time, I think you're right, that status quo, like if someone has owned a product or used a product for an extended period of time, we can probably assume without, if they haven't changed their subscription, that status quo bias is going to set in, right? I think about all of the things around my house that I'm like, oh, well, this is like, I have duct tape on the door handle of the fridge, and like, yeah, I could probably change that, but like at this point now it's been 3 months and like it's now my status quo and I've just evolved to that. So I would make the assumption that like if you have been, if a user hasn't changed their product experience, whether it's with adding new features or adding an upsell or something of that nature, it's probably sent in. And then I would use probably drop-off data to think about curiosity versus transparency. But I'll also open it to Abigail or Channing if there are thoughts there too.
Sure,
I'd say
I can.
one quick thing about status quo where it can work in your favor is when you're trying to build on an existing mental model, right? I think sometimes you don't necessarily want to completely reshape people's mental model. If you're like, I'm like Uber, but for dogs, right? That's a very helpful thing that people understand what there is. There is a status quo around what I expect from Uber. Now, if Uber is saying we're releasing a new feature, they might then need to invoke some curiosity or break out of that existing mental model. So many times those things that already exist within your status quo can help you build and ladder up new experiences that people might otherwise be be loath to try. And then the other places where you might want to think about leveraging status quo is in design patterns for UI and UX. People have expectations that an X in the upper right corner is there to close a box. And if it's not there, people get very upset. And so you don't necessarily want to break convention in ways that kind of already benefit the user experience.
Yeah, Abby.
Great, that's helpful. That makes,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I can add one thing I've been thinking about too is I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the piece around uncertainty, because both of these psychologies are really related to our perceptions of uncertainty. So when we're uncertain about something, we might stay in the status quo. But also, as I talked about, that uncertainty can drive curiosity. But I think what will help you kind of decide which levers to pull and how to pull them is like trying to understand what that uncertainty is about. Is it an uncertainty around something fear related, something someone doesn't want to do, something that could have a potential negative implication? And that might be keeping people in status quo. And therefore you might want to be transparent or help guide them to that choice, versus if the uncertainty is just a lack of a positive, like if they don't know what there is to be good out there, then that's like a really different type of uncertainty that you can provide people with just a taste of the information to leverage curiosity in that way.
Okay,
Awesome.
that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, great to hear from you, Sharon. Drive safely. You're supposed to say, yeah, I will.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Would you go mute? That's a bad one to not respond to. Awesome. Cool. Well, is it Kachi? And you're in Toronto, so you're probably all blue jayed out. But please come on the mic. Tell us what's up.
Hi, hello, hi everyone. Okay, so I'm not into behavioral economics at all. I'm just very curious, and I work with e-commerce brands sometimes. And I know that I'm also interested in the behavioral economics program at University of Nottingham. But I know that with great power comes like great responsibility. So I'm just very curious about, as I learn more and as I grow in the field of like behavioral economics and research, like how do I make sure that I maintain and retain some level of like human-centeredness and ethical usage of the knowledge that I have? I don't know if there's any approach to like making sure that there are some kind of guardrails or guidelines that, you know, could help prevent me from unknowingly just venturing into the dark side.
I can quickly say this is so one of the great principles that behavioral economics and behavioral science was founded on is about closing the intention action gap. And so the idea here is that people have intentions to do something, but don't always act on those intentions. Like I might have an intention to go run, but I don't act on those things. And so behavioral science works really well when you're trying to close that gap. And what that means is you're helping people do the things that they really want to do. You're helping people achieve those goals. Sometimes it is fuzzy. You don't know if they intend to actually buy this product or they intend to purchase the subscription. So that's when you have to really question, what is this good for the user? Is this good for the people that you're trying to serve? But in many cases, we are not trying to necessarily create intention. We're trying to close that intention action gap, turn that intention that they have, make it easier for them to act on their behavior. So that's something that I always ask myself, are we helping to close the gap between intention and action, or are we creating new intention? And if we're creating new intention, then we have to think a little bit harder.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Something that I also think about a lot is how no design or no contextual environment is neutral. The context we're living in, the designs we're engaging in is going to shift our behavior one way or the other, whether we intentionally design it to or not. So I think being aware of that is like one step in the right direction, as long as you keep that intent action gap that Channing mentioned in mind and like keep your user's best interests in mind. But not using behavioral science is just equally going to the dark side as using it, you know?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the sludge side, the sludge side. With that, Claire, how are you? How are things in Oklahoma?
I'm good, thanks. Things are good. Yeah, how are you?
All right. Well, so Abby is a fellow Badger. For those of you not in the US, that means they both went to University of Wisconsin. So bring your question. And Channing, we might need you to go back to a slide because she's referencing a specific slide. So go ahead, Claire, take it away.
Sorry, I didn't put a question in there actually. So I
Oh,
don't
there
know.
must be another Claire.
Maybe
Well,
there's
say
another
hi.
Claire. Yeah.
You have a
But
question?
hi.
Do you have a question? Otherwise, we'll find the other Claire.
You can find the other Claire. I'll think of one if there isn't another one.
No, there's plenty of questions. Other
Okay,
Claire,
cool.
tell us about yourself.
I think they said they can't switch their mic on right now.
Oh, okay. Other Claire. Okay. Team, actually, I think Jeff, can you look at other Claire's question in the document and come in and address it because it's a screenshot? I think it's from yours, but I'm not sure. So Daniela, could you come on real quick?
Yes, of course. Here is Daniela from Argentina. So,
Awesome.
you know, in Argentina, we're having like the first bachelor degree and master degrees in this field. So it's growing fast, but it is still quiet now. And most of the work so far, or that is shown, comes from the public sector. So I would like to know if the behavioral science field expands across industries and what kind of needs are driving the strongest demand in the private sector. Is it in product design, HR, or what are your thoughts and experience on this?
Well, Daniela, just firstly, you're not related to Jeff?
No, but
that we know
I
of.
have family in Switzerland. Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah. Well, who wants to take that? Channing or Abby, you want to lead? Because Jeff's
Sure.
looking.
I think it's certainly being applied all over. I think government and public sector are most kind of steadfastly holding on to the behavioral science idea and the label. But I think a lot of the thinking about user psychology, applying those to make changes within environments is true across the board. I think that a lot of times they're just being subsumed by the idea of maybe a user experience researcher, a UX designer, a product manager, and using those things as well. So I'd say, Daniela, that the skills that you can learn in behavioral science will be broadly applicable regardless of what sector you go to. You might have to look for slightly different titles or slightly different nomenclature if you want to apply it in different sectors.
With that, we're coming close on time. So Jeff, can you close us out with other Claire's question? And thank you, at number 2. We really appreciate your question. Oh, Jeff, are you okay?
Yeah, actually, Ryan, can you go forward one slide, or Channing, are you sharing? I think this gets to some of the pieces of like the demand for work in the public and private sector. I think these are kind of 3 ways that we think of implementing this throughout through different orgs, whether it be like product design, that's kind of what we've been thinking about most heavily here. And then Channing just mentioned that Abby and I were in Singapore recently. We were doing a B-side training within org there, and then there's a lot of AI strategy. These are things that are kind of moving all through there. So just wanted to, I think that is a helpful point to bring that full circle on Danielle's question. But to Claire, I think your question is a good one. The CTA being capitalized increases the salience some, and so that is certainly one feature that they could influence the design.
Awesome. Ned, Channing, could you go to that last slide, please? Nicely done, Jeff. But yes, thank you all for joining us today. If you are a regular, thanks for coming again. We always love seeing you. If you're a newbie, come join our boot camp. You can learn with us, and you can kind of get a feel for all this stuff. And we will help you get all the basics and be ready to go and apply ideas right now in your field. And come consider being a partner with us downstream. I don't know if there's a slide on that. Yes, let's keep hanging out. We dropped all our LinkedIns in the chat, so you can scroll back, be our friends on LinkedIn, look us up, talk to us. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help your organizations improve your process, your practices, and your product. So that's what we're here for. This is what we do, and we try to make a big difference with people and their work. So listen, have a wonderful Halloween for those of you that celebrate. Keep in touch. Don't be strangers. We'll see you next month. Do we have our next month topic? I forget. Rosie, do we have a topic?
Almost, not yet. TBC. Oh, it's very
Curiosity.
exciting. Exactly.
Curiosity. That's what I'm talking about. So stay curious. It's going to be epic. We'll see you all in November. Take care. Be safe, everybody. Watch
Thank
out
you,
for
everyone.
Jeff. Yeah, watch out for
Bye.
Jeff if you're on a train.